It was the late 1960s, and on drag strips across America, spectators expected one thing: the deep, thunderous roar of a big block V8. Bigger engines meant bigger power. At least that's what everyone believed. The smell of burnt rubber hung thick in the air. Spectators clutched their beers. Money exchanged hands as bets were placed. Then a strange sound cut through the air. Not the familiar rumble of 8 cylinders. A sharper, smoother howl. An inline-six. People laughed. Some even walked away before the green light. Others made jokes. Did he bring his lawnmower? Somebody get that grocery getter off the track. That thing sounds like my wife's station wagon. The V8 driver next to him revved confidently. Big block thunder echoed through the stands. But a few seconds later, those same people stood frozen as that little 6-cylinder crossed the finish line first, leaving expensive V8-powered muscle cars staring at its taillights. The betting money changed hands quietly. Faces went pale. Someone in the crowd muttered, "That's impossible." Another dropped his hot dog. But the scoreboards didn't lie. The times were real. Most people have no idea this ever happened, because hidden beneath one of Chevrolet's most ordinary-looking engines was one of the greatest engineering stories in American performance history. A story about an engine that wasn't supposed to win, an engine built for economy, then transformed into something capable of humiliating Chevrolet's own V8 lineup. An engine that changed the rules, and what happened next changed everything. By the mid-1960s, Chevrolet already had one of the strongest V8 portfolios in Detroit, the legendary 283, the high-revving 327, the tire-shredding 396, and eventually the monstrous 427. If you wanted speed, Chevrolet had a V8 for you. Dealerships proudly displayed them, magazine covers featured them, street racers worshipped them. Hollywood put them in movies. Or so everyone thought. Meanwhile, sitting quietly in the corner of Chevrolet's lineup was an engine almost nobody respected. The Chevrolet Turbo-Thrift 230, and later the 250 cubic inch inline-six. Originally introduced in 1962, the engine was designed for reliability, low production costs, and everyday transportation. Nothing glamorous. It was the engine salesman apologized for. The engine rental car companies ordered by the thousands. The engine your grandfather bought because it saved gas money. The engine fleet managers specified for taxi cabs. Nobody bragged about owning one, at least not yet. Its architecture was remarkably simple. A cast iron block, cast iron cylinder head, 7 main bearings supporting the crankshaft. Overhead valves operated by a single camshaft located in the block through pushrods. Nothing exotic, nothing expensive. Nothing that turned heads at car shows. No aluminum, no fuel injection. No fancy overhead cams, but that 7 main bearing crankshaft would become one of its greatest strengths. Unlike many older inline engines that relied on 4 or 5 main bearings, Chevrolet engineers gave this engine exceptional bottom-end stability. At high RPM, crankshaft flex was dramatically reduced. The crank was supported almost every few inches. Twisting was minimal. Bearing loads were distributed evenly. Most buyers never noticed. Accountants loved the lower warranty costs. Engineers quietly appreciated the elegant simplicity. Racers absolutely did. The early 230 featured a 3.875-inch bore and a 3.25-inch stroke, producing 230 cubic inches or roughly 3.8 liters. Compression ratios ranged around 8.5, one depending on application, producing between 140 and 155 horsepower. Nothing impressive on paper. Chevrolet advertised it as dependable. Marketing materials highlighted economy. Brochures showed families on road trips, smiling grandmothers, kids in the back seat, not burnouts, not trophies, not speed, just ordinary transportation. Then came the 250. Its bore remained at 3.875 inches, but engineers increased the stroke to 3.53 inches, bringing displacement to 250 cubic inches or 4.1 liters. Torque jumped to around 235 pound-feet. For daily driving, that meant effortless acceleration. Merging onto highways became easier. Passing slow trucks required less drama. Hill climbing improved. For racers, it meant potential. Serious potential, hidden potential. But there was a problem. Actually, several problems. Factory cylinder heads simply couldn't breathe well enough. The intake ports were restrictive. Exhaust ports choked airflow. Valve sizes were modest. Combustion chambers were inefficient. Above about 4,800 revolutions per minute, horsepower flattened dramatically. The engine just ran out of breath, like a marathon runner hitting the wall. The valves simply couldn't move enough air. Most people would have stopped there, accepted the limitations, moved on to a V8, forgotten about it entirely, traded it in. Hot rodders didn't. Across garages in California, Texas, and the Midwest, enthusiasts began experimenting. Late nights turned into early mornings. Weekends disappeared into workshops. Coffee became fuel. Marriages were tested. They ported heads by hand. Grinding wheels wore down to nothing. Hands developed calluses. Lungs filled with metal dust. Hours turned into days. Days turned into weeks. Installed larger intake valves, sometimes going from 1.72 inches to 1.94 inches. Every millimeter mattered. Every fraction of flow counted. Swapped camshafts. Raised compression ratios beyond 10.5. 1. Some brave souls pushed past 11. 1. Premium fuel became mandatory. Engine knock became the enemy. Added triple one-barrel carburetors before eventually adapting larger four-barrel setups. Fabricators built custom intake manifolds in dimly lit shops. Welding late into the night. Trial and error taught harsh lessons. Failed experiments filled scrap bins. Suddenly, horsepower wasn't 155 anymore. It was climbing toward 240, then 280, then beyond 300 naturally aspirated. Dyno sheets told the story. Numbers nobody believed at first. Your dyno must be broken. It wasn't. Remember, this was supposed to be an economy engine. The same engine your neighbor used to deliver newspapers. The same engine taxi drivers relied on. The same engine powering work trucks. And then the real surprise arrived. Forced induction. The Chevrolet Inline-Six loved boost, almost like it was designed for it. Its long crankshaft was heavily supported. Its deep skirt block resisted twisting. Its forged aftermarket internals proved astonishingly durable. The inline configuration kept everything in a straight line, reducing side loads. Heat distribution was more even than cramped V8 layouts. Cooling became simpler, more predictable, more manageable. Builders began installing turbochargers capable of producing 15, even 30 pounds of boost. The sound changed completely. That smooth howl became a screaming banshee. Wastegates crackled between shifts, blow-off valves hissed like angry serpents, compressor surge whooshed. The biggest enemy wasn't usually the block. It was the pistons. Cast factory pistons couldn't survive sustained detonation. Under heavy boost, ringlands cracked. Broken aluminum filled oil pans. Cylinder walls became scarred. Spark plugs emerged, looking like they'd been through a furnace. Porcelain insulators turned white. Electrodes melted into shapeless lumps. Ground straps simply vanished. One mechanic reportedly joked, "The pistons didn't melt, they evaporated." Another said, "I found pieces in the exhaust pipe 3 feet downstream." A third swore he saw piston material on the rear bumper. Nobody was entirely sure he was joking, so builders adapted, because that's what builders do. They learn, they evolve, they solve problems. Forged pistons replaced cast originals. Stronger connecting rods were installed. Compression ratios dropped into the 8.01 range for turbo combinations. Some went even lower for extreme boost levels. 7.51 became common. Some radical builds went to 7.1. Fuel systems became dramatically larger. Single carburetors became dual setups. 750 CFM Hollies replaced tiny factory units. Eventually, fuel injection arrived. Mega squirt systems, Haltech, AEM, intercoolers, lowered intake temperatures, air to air, air to water. Whatever worked, whatever fit. And ignition timing was carefully managed to prevent destructive knock. Timing curves were mapped meticulously. Every degree mattered. Every RPM point was optimized. Too much advance meant catastrophic failure. Too little meant lost power. The margin for error was razor thin. The transformation was astonishing. Reliable street builds suddenly produced 450 horsepower. Serious race engines crossed 600. Dedicated drag combinations eventually exceeded 800 horsepower from 6 cylinders, from an engine originally rated at 155 horsepower, from an engine designed to sip fuel economically, from an engine nobody wanted, and that embarrassed more than a few V8 owners. Street races became legend. Stories spread through car clubs. You hear about that Nova with the 6-banger? Ran a 10.2 at Thompson. No way, I was there, saw it myself. What was he running? Stock-looking 6 with a turbo. Impossible. But it wasn't. The proof was in the time slips. One reason the engine survived such punishment was surprisingly simple: oiling. Chevrolet engineers had given the Inline-Six an efficient lubrication system that supplied the crankshaft through generously sized oil galleries. At sustained high RPM, maintaining oil pressure remained critical. Absolutely critical. Life or death for the engine. Builders often upgraded oil pumps, enlarged pickup tubes, and added baffled oil pans to prevent oil starvation during hard launches. Because once oil pressure disappeared, everything failed. Instantly, catastrophically, violently. Bearings overheated, temperatures spiked beyond 400 degrees. Connecting rods turned blue from heat. The crankshaft welded itself to the bearings. Metal fragments contaminated the entire system. Entire engines locked solid before reaching the finish line. Tow trucks became familiar sights. Veteran racers learned quickly: protect the oil, monitor pressure constantly, install warning lights, install backup gauges, protect the engine. It sounds obvious now. Back then, it won races. It saved thousands in rebuild costs. It separated professionals from amateurs. You can probably guess what happened next. But the truth is even crazier. As aftermarket support exploded during the 1970s and 1980s, companies began producing aluminum cylinder heads with vastly improved airflow, larger valves, modern combustion chambers, straighter intake runners, better port shapes developed through countless hours of flow bench testing. Flow bench testing showed dramatic gains over factory castings, where stock heads moved 140 cubic feet per minute. Aftermarket versions flowed 220, then 240. Eventually, some designs exceeded 270 CFM. The difference was staggering. Night and day. Engines that once struggled to breathe above 5,000 revolutions per minute were now comfortably revving beyond 7,000. Some pushed to 8,000. The personality completely changed. Camshaft technology advanced as well. Aggressive solid lifter profiles dramatically increased valve lift and duration. Roller rocker arms reduced friction. Double valve springs prevented valve float. Titanium retainers reduced reciprocating weight. Every component became optimized. Every gram counted. Every ounce of friction eliminated. Suddenly, this humble Inline-Six behaved less like a truck engine and more like a racing engine. A legitimate, competitive racing engine. Something worthy of respect. Then turbocharging technology took another leap. Larger compressor wheels, more efficient turbine housings, wastegates that actually controlled boost precisely, ball-bearing turbochargers spooled faster, response improved dramatically, lag became almost non-existent. Modern turbos were technological marvels. Electronic fuel injection replaced carburetors on many builds. Air-fuel ratios became safer. Mixtures could be adjusted in real time. Ignition timing became more accurate. Mapping software allowed tuners unprecedented control. Laptop computers replaced screwdrivers. Data logging replaced guesswork. Power climbed again. 700 horsepower became almost routine among serious builders. Some dedicated race combinations pushed well beyond 1,000 horsepower. Numbers that would have seemed like science fiction just decades earlier. Numbers that embarrassed exotic engines costing 10 times more. And that's when V8 owners stopped laughing. Completely stopped. One famous example came from countless outlaw drag events throughout the 1980s and 1990s, where turbocharged Chevrolet Inline-Six cars repeatedly defeated V8-powered Camaros, Novas, and Chevelles. Crowds couldn't believe what they were seeing. Announcements over loudspeakers were met with confusion. Did he say 6-cylinder? Must be a mistake. Check the scoreboards. It wasn't. The smaller engine often left the starting line with less drama. No deafening roar, no violent wheel spin, no smoke show, no fanfare, no theatrics. Just relentless acceleration as boost built. Turbos spooled, boost gauges climbed, G-forces increased, progressively, relentlessly. Half track, the V8 was still beside it, sometimes even slightly ahead. Drivers pushed harder, engines screamed, boost peaked. By the finish, the six-cylinder had disappeared, gone, vanished into the distance. Quarter-mile times dropped into the 9-second range. Then the 8S jaws dropped. Eventually, purpose-built combinations pushed deep into the 7-second zone at well over 180 miles per hour. Some trap speeds exceeded 190 miles per hour. A few touched 200, numbers that would have seemed impossible when Chevrolet introduced the engine back in 1962. Numbers that rivaled purpose-built V8 race engines, costing twice as much. Numbers that rewrote record books. But success created new problems, new challenges that demanded solutions. Cylinder head gaskets became weak links under extreme boost. Combustion pressure literally lifted cylinder heads off the block. Coolant mixed with oil. Compression disappeared. Engines died. Builders responded with stronger head studs, copper gaskets, and O-ringed blocks designed to contain enormous cylinder pressure. Machine shops developed specialized techniques. Torque sequences became critical. Torque values became precise science. Everything had to be perfect. One mistake meant failure. Crankshaft harmonics also became dangerous at extreme RPM. Long inline crankshafts naturally twist more than short V8 cranks. Torsional vibration could be devastating. High-performance harmonic dampers became essential, not optional. Essential, mandatory, required equipment. Ignore vibration, and eventually the crankshaft could crack. Usually at the most expensive moment possible. Mid-race, under full load, complete destruction. Thousands of dollars in parts destroyed. Again, engineering solved the problem, not by abandoning the engine, by understanding it, by respecting physics, by learning from failures, by studying fracture patterns, by measuring vibration frequencies. That philosophy became the Inline-Six's greatest advantage. Instead of throwing away the platform, builders improved every weakness one piece at a time, methodically, intelligently, patiently, systematically. That's why the engine developed such a loyal following. It rewarded knowledge, patience, creativity, stubbornness, dedication. While factory V8s often relied on sheer displacement, the Inline-Six relied on efficiency. Every improvement mattered. Every airflow gain counted. Every pound of boost had a purpose. Nothing was wasted. And perhaps that's why enthusiasts still love it today. The engine taught lessons: respect for engineering, appreciation for details, understanding that displacement isn't everything, that brains beat brawn. Ironically, Chevrolet never intended for this engine to become a performance legend. Production versions powered family sedans, pickup trucks, station wagons, and work vehicles throughout the 1960s, 70s, and into the early 1980s. Millions were built, literally millions. Most lived quiet, ordinary lives. They hauled lumber, took kids to school, pulled small trailers, delivered mail, powered utility vehicles, sat in traffic, idled at stoplights. Nobody expected history from them. Nobody expected greatness. Nobody thought twice about them. Yet decades later, those same engines became foundations for some of the fastest six-cylinder race cars in North America. Junkyards became treasure troves. Salvage yards held fortunes. Builders traveled hundreds of miles for the right core engine. Specific casting numbers became valuable. Eventually, emissions regulations tightened. Fuel economy priorities changed. Corporate bean counters demanded smaller, lighter engines. Overhead cam engines became the new standard. Computer-aided design replaced drafting tables. By the mid-1980s, Chevrolet's traditional Inline-Six era was ending. Production gradually gave way to newer V6 designs that were shorter, lighter, and easier to package inside modern vehicles. On paper, it looked like progress. Efficiency improved. Packaging became easier. Manufacturing costs dropped. Shareholders were happy. But something disappeared. The incredible simplicity, the bulletproof bottom end, the character, the soul. the heritage. The unmistakable sound of a boosted inline-six climbing toward full boost, that sound became history. Today, original performance parts have become highly sought after. Rare racing cylinder heads command thousands of dollars. Vintage intake manifolds are collector pieces. Original turbo setups sell for premiums. Complete turbo builds regularly appear at racing events, proving these engines still have plenty to say. Modern builders continue refining the formula using CNC machined cylinder heads, billet crankshafts, forged rotating assemblies, electronic engine management, and massive precision turbochargers. Technology that would have seemed impossible in the 1960s. Some combinations now exceed 1,500 horsepower. A few extreme builds have pushed beyond 2,000. From an engine architecture Chevrolet originally intended for economy cars. From an engine designed to sip fuel. From an engine nobody wanted. From an engine people laughed at. Think about that for a moment. An engine dismissed as slow, ignored by most buyers, overshadowed by legendary V8s, mocked at drag strips, written off by enthusiasts, ended up earning respect the hardest way possible, by beating them, again and again, consistently, undeniably, decisively, spectacularly. That's the real legacy of Chevrolet's Inline-Six. It wasn't louder, it wasn't bigger, it wasn't the engine anyone expected to become a legend. It didn't have exotic overhead cams, it didn't have fancy fuel injection from the factory, it didn't have a legendary nameplate, it didn't have celebrity endorsements, it didn't have magazine covers, but engineering doesn't care about reputation, it cares about results, it cares about physics, it cares about execution, it cares about performance. And this humble straight six proved that smart design, relentless development, and determined racers could turn an ordinary commuter engine into one of the most feared sleepers in American performance history. It proved that creativity beats cubic inches, that knowledge beats budget, that passion beats marketing, that persistence beats prejudice, that dedication beats displacement. The Chevrolet Inline-Six didn't just win races, it won hearts. It built communities, it created lifelong friendships in garages across the country. It taught a generation that underestimated engines can become unstoppable legends. And that lesson still echoes today, in shops across America, in racing paddocks, in dyno rooms, in the minds of enthusiasts who refuse to accept limitations. If you enjoyed this story, let me know in the comments which forgotten engine deserves the next deep dive. And make sure to subscribe, because the greatest legends in automotive history are often the ones most people have never heard of. The stories hiding in plain sight. The underdogs that refused to lose. The engines that changed everything. The legends built in garages, not boardrooms.